What if a small, dedicated group could spark a global spiritual awakening? Joel Goldsmith believed it was possible, and he laid out a radical blueprint called Group 7. This isn't just theory, it's a practical, collaborative path to manifesting a new collective consciousness. Discover the profound implications and actionable steps to being part of this transformative vision for humanity. He was talking about building an ark of consciousness for a world that's spiritually drowning. Not with wood and nails, but with silent prayer, with recognition of the one presence and one power. This Group 7, they're the spiritual special forces, holding the light steady while the rest of us figure out which way is up. Now, here's the kicker, and this is where it gets real for all of us chillin' here today, that Group 7 wasn't just his posse back in the day. The blueprint is live. It's active. It's waiting. The question is, who's ready to form the next 7? Who's ready to stop just talking about the light and actually become the quiet, unshakable generator of it? Don't just sit on this vibe. If this hit you, if you feel that inner yes, then show it. Smash that like button, so we know the tribe's gathering. Drop a 7 in the comments below. That's our symbolic number, our code for I'm awake to the blueprint. And subscribe, because this journey into the practical mystic life, it's just getting started. The real work begins now. You in? So let's break down that first cornerstone, what Joel called the divine circuit plug-in into the one power. See, Goldsmith's whole gig was cutting through the spiritual small talk. He wasn't about trying to get a distant, maybe mad at you God to toss you a bone. That's old paradigm thinking, and it's exhausting. He flipped the script entirely. He taught that God, this infinite invisible, this divine consciousness, isn't a separate entity you got a long-distance call. It's the very current of life itself. It's the electricity, and your real being, your true identity beneath all the personal drama and history, is a perfect outlet for that current. Think about it like this. You don't beg a wall outlet for power. You don't negotiate with it or try to be worthy enough for it. You just take a lamp, you plug it in, and boom, connection, light happens. The power was always there, flowing. The lamp's job isn't to create electricity, its job is to conduct it, to surrender to it, to let it shine through. That's us, our human mess, our fears, our wants, our constant strategizing. That's like a lamp with a busted plug or a dusty, painted-over bulb. We're blocking the current, not from malice, but from ignorance. We're trying to be the power companies and the appliance, and we're burning ourselves out. Goldsmith's work, then, is the ultimate rewiring job. It's about cleaning that connection until it's seamless. This plugging in isn't an action you do with your hands. It's a consent you give with your soul. It's a shift from God give me peace to God you are my peace, revealed here and now. It's moving from prayer as a request form to prayer as a recognition ceremony. You sit in the silence, not to broadcast your wish list into the void, but to become still enough to register the hum of the divine current that's already present. You acknowledge it, you yield to it, you let that impersonal, loving intelligence flow through your personal situation without you trying to dictate the how or the when. This is where it gets practical and, honestly, kind of radical. When you start operating from this plugged-in place, you're no longer a lonely little human trying to muscle through life with your own limited smarts and willpower. You become a transparency. Solutions show up from unexpected angles. Synchronicities become normal. You find a strength that isn't your own, a peace that doesn't make logical sense given the chaos swirling around you. It's not that your humanhood disappears, it becomes infused. You make decisions. You take actions, but they're inspired, they're led. You're navigating from the inside out, guided by that current. And this, right here, is the non-negotiable foundation for the whole Group 7 vision. Because you can't build a spiritual power grid with a bunch of unplugged lamps. The group's potency comes from each individual member having done, and continually doing, this inner work of conscious connection. It's not a group where you lean on each other's human personalities for comfort. It's a collective of aligned conductors, each one individually tuned to the one power, coming together in silence. When they do, the current isn't just added together, it's amplified. It creates a spiritual force field of recognition, a sustained acknowledgement of the divine presence that begins to correct the mental atmosphere around it. It starts in the silence of your own inner room. This command central we all have access to, where you learn to stop talking and start listening, to stop begging and start receiving what has always been freely given. This individual practice is the essential drill, the daily reps that prepare you for the collective mission. Without this grounded, personal experience of the circuit, the concept of a group just becomes another social club with a spiritual label. But with it, you become part of something operational, something far greater than the sum of its parts, where the light isn't just discussed, but genuinely amplified and released into the world. Now, if that divine circuit is the power source, then this right here, our own consciousness, is where we interface with it. Goldsmith called this the inner room, and he wasn't kidding around. He said this is your command central. This is where the whole game is won or lost, not out there in the chaos of the world. See, the world's noise is like a million radio stations blasting static at you. The news, the drama, your bills, your relationships, all that stuff screaming for your attention, trying to convince you that it is the ultimate reality. That it's the problem you got to solve with your own sweat and tears. And if you buy into that, you're basically abandoning your post. You're leaving command central unattended to go fight fires on the front lawn, never realizing you have the controls inside to calm the winds themselves. Your inner room is that space behind all that noise. It's not a physical place you build, it's a state of attention you choose. It's the profound, deliberate silence you cultivate when you shut the door on the external racket and, more importantly, on your own internal commentary. The worries, the replays, the to-do lists. It's you getting still, not to escape, but to take command, because in that quiet, you're not a victim of circumstances anymore. You're at the controls of your perception, and in Goldsmith's vision, perception is everything. Reality isn't the solid thing we bump into. It's the shape our consciousness takes. When you're agitated, fearful, and focused on lack, you're broadcasting that signal from your command central, and your world reflects back a bunch of reasons to be agitated, fearful, and lacking. It's a feedback loop of your own creation. But when you retreat to this inner room, you change the broadcast. You sit in the silence and you remember the circuit. You don't think about God. You open yourself to the as-awareness of God as the very fabric of your being and the situation. This is the quiet revolution. It's not a protest with signs and shouts. It's a sovereign, internal coup. You dethrone the tyrant of external appearances and you install the truth of your oneness with the infinite. You wait. You listen. And you don't just listen for a voice giving instructions. You listen for a felt sense of presence, a knowing, a peace that comes up from the depths. That peace isn't passive, it's the most active, creative force in the universe. It's the power that rearranges the mental atoms of a situation before anything even changes on the outside. From this command post, your interaction with the world transforms. You don't react from a place of panic. You respond from a place of anchored principle. If a problem arises, you don't rush out to tackle its surface form. You first go inward to your seat of authority and you get still. You acknowledge the presence and power of the divine right there in the midst of the challenge. You surrender there's outcome to that intelligence. Your job is to hold the fort of your own consciousness, to maintain that signal of peace and wholeness, no matter what the storm looks like outside the window. This is the real work. It looks like doing nothing, but it's actually doing everything. It's where a healing happens at the level of cause, not effect. When you're steady in here, the out there has no choice but to eventually conform to that higher, quieter frequency. This daily, hourly practice of interior alignment is the non-negotiable discipline. It's how you stop being a weather vane spun by every wind of circumstance and become the lighthouse, steady, immovable, sending out a beam of clear, calm light, not because the sea is calm, but because that's your nature. Once you remember where your true controls are located, this mastery of the inner room is what makes an individual ready for the collective work, because only those who can govern their own inner state can contribute to governing the collective atmosphere without being pulled into its turmoil. And this mastery of the inner room, this individual alignment with the divine circuit, is never meant to be a solo trip to a private mountaintop. That's where most spiritual journeys stop, a personal peace, a private salvation. But Goldsmith saw further. He saw the law, the spiritual mathematics of it. He knew that when an individual becomes a clear conductor, the light pours through. But when a group of individuals, each one having done this inner work, consciously unite in that same recognition, something exponential happens. It's not just additive, it's geometric. This is the multiplier effect. 7 souls can shift the world. Think of it like tuning forks. A single tuning fork vibrating at a pure pitch is one thing. But place another tuning fork, tuned to the same frequency near it, and the second one will start to vibrate on its own, sympathetic resonance. Now imagine 7. The sound isn't just louder, it creates a field so strong, so coherent, that it can begin to bring other, nearby objects into harmony. It can change the very atmosphere in the room. Goldsmith's Group 7 operates on this same spiritual principle. It's a practical application of a divine law. He taught that consciousness is a substance, the primary substance, and when a small group, 7 being a symbolic number of spiritual completion and power, gathers with one united intent, not to petition, but to collectively abide in the recognition of the one presence, they generate a tangible field of Christ consciousness. They become a living battery, a sustained broadcast tower of truth in a world hypnotized by illusion. This group isn't a study circle or a support group where people share their problems. That would just be pooling their humanhood. No, this is a spiritual unit. They might be physically together or miles apart. Distance is irrelevant to consciousness. At an appointed time, they each go into their own inner room, their command central, and they do the same work. They shut the door on the world's narrative and on their personal sense of self. They sink into the silence, and together, though not through physical effort, they collectively acknowledge the infinite reality of God as the only presence and power operating where a problem as appears to be. They don't outline what the solution should look like for a nation, a community, or a global crisis. They simply, steadfastly hold the space of truth. They bear witness to the divine where the world sees discord. They become, as a collective, the ark of consciousness that rides above the flood of mortal belief. The power here is in the agreement, not an agreement of opinion, but an agreement of state of being. It's a conspiracy of consciousness. When 7 people can achieve and maintain that silent, unanimous focus on the unseen reality, they create a vortex. Their combined spiritual authority acts as a lever on the mental climate. It begins to dissolve the collective hypnosis, the shared nightmares of separation, lack, and fear that play out as conflict and suffering on the world stage. They are, in essence, performing light surgery on the psychic body of humanity. One person holding a light in a storm is brave, but 7, linking their light together, create a beacon that can pierce the fog for miles around, guiding others not by their words, but by the sheer, undeniable potency of the field they generate. This is the quiet, behind-the-scenes engineering of reality that Goldsmith envisioned. It moves spirituality out of the realm of personal comfort and into the arena of global service. It's the understanding that your inner work is the essential training, but the mission, the ultimate purpose of that alignment, is to join with other awakened conductors and amplify the signal to a volume the sleeping world can't ignore. It turns spiritual practice from a noun into a verb, an active, collective force for tangible transformation, starting in the invisible realm where all real change is first conceived. This collective action of the Group 7 reveals the profound shift in what spiritual practice actually is within this blueprint. It moves us completely beyond the traditional notion of prayer. In Goldsmith's vision, we're not sending out wishful thoughts or desperate appeals into some cosmic customer service void. That old model of prayer is based on a sense of separation. A me over here, trying to get the attention of a God over there, hoping to negotiate a better outcome. It keeps us stuck in the paradigm of a beggar at the universe's door. What the Group 7 engages in is something far more potent and mature. It's his recognition. Not begging. Recognition is the game changer. It's the active, immediate acknowledgement of what is already and always true, regardless of the screaming evidence of the physical senses or the frantic news cycle. It's the conscious choice to turn away from the problem, not in denial, but in supreme spiritual authority, and to turn toward the spiritual fact. The spiritual fact is this: the infinite invisible is the only presence. It is the only power. It is omnipresent, which means it is fully present right here, right now, in this very situation that appears as a crisis. The Group 7, in their silent unison, is not asking for God to show up. They are recognizing, with the full force of their collectively stilled consciousness, that God is all that is present. They are, in a sense, calling the world's bluff. They are refusing to validate the illusion of a power struggle, of a presence called evil, of a reality called lack. Think of it like this: you walk into a dark room. You don't beg the darkness to leave. You don't negotiate with it. You recognize the law of light, and you flip the switch. The darkness never had substance, it was just an absence. Your action wasn't a fight, it was an application of a higher principle. The Group 7, in their recognition, is flipping the switch of spiritual truth in the face of the world's collective darkness. They are declaring, in the silent language of consciousness, "I see only you here." This declaration isn't for God's benefit. God doesn't need to be reminded. It's for our benefit. It aligns our own awareness, and through the multiplier effect, amplifies that aligned awareness with the eternal is-ness. It corrects our misperception. This is prayer as treatment. It's a surgical, intentional use of consciousness to address any appearance of discord by knowing the truth about it. You take the specific problem, a war, a sickness, a personal conflict, and you consciously withdraw all power from its appearance. You stop fighting its form. Instead, you place the problem in your thought within the context of the all-presence. You recognize that within the very core of that turmoil, the divine activity is unfolding perfectly, though invisibly. You acknowledge harmony where there seems to be chaos, peace where there seems to be strife, wholeness where there seems to be brokenness. You don't just say the words, you sink into the knowing of them, until that knowing becomes your state of being. This is what the members of the group are doing together. They are holding a specific situation or the entire world consciousness in the light of this recognition. They are not changing God's mind. They are changing the mental medium, the collective thought atmosphere in which the situation exists, allowing the ever-present divine solution to take form unhindered. It is the ultimate act of co-creation, where our role is not to build the solution with our human hands, but to clear the mental debris so that the infinite can manifest its own perfect idea. This moves us from spiritual adolescence, where we're always asking for stuff, into spiritual adulthood, where we take responsibility for the quality of consciousness we bring to every corner of the universe, thereby becoming conscious points of its unfolding grace. This work of silent recognition is the true construction project. It reframes our entire purpose. We are not here to build bigger institutions or amass followers to a personal creed. That's the old way, building with bricks of doctrine and mortar of dogma, creating structures that can, and inevitably do, crumble. Goldsmith pointed us toward something eternal and unshakable. He called us to be Ark Builders, constructing consciousness, not cathedrals. The ark is the perfect metaphor. In the biblical story, it wasn't a weapon to fight the flood. It wasn't a monument to Noah's ego. It was a vessel of preservation, a bubble of a different order of reality, built to precise, divine instructions, designed to ride above the destructive currents. It held the seed of a new beginning. Our work, in this modern sense of global awakening, is to build an ark, but our materials aren't gopher wood and pitch. Our materials are spiritual truths held in the integrity of our own consciousness. The ark we are building is a collective vessel of Christ consciousness, a sustained, coherent field of spiritual awareness that can ride above the flood of the world's fear, hatred, and materialistic hypnosis. The Group 7 is a prototype, a core building crew for this ark. Their unified silence is the hammering of the planks into place. Their recognition of the one presence in the face of global chaos is the sealing of the seams, making the vessel watertight against the torrent of mortal belief. This construction project happens entirely in the invisible. You won't see a groundbreaking ceremony on the news, but its effects will eventually be seen by all. When enough individuals, and then groups of individuals, learn to dwell in this ark of realized truth, they create a leavening effect in the whole lump of human consciousness. They hold a frequency that others, often unconsciously, begin to resonate with. A person drowning in anxiety might suddenly find a strange, inexplicable calm washing over them for no external reason. A community locked in conflict might find an unexpected opening for dialogue emerging from nowhere. This isn't magic, it's spiritual mechanics. The Ark Builders, by maintaining their high state of awareness, are emitting a corrective tone. They are holding the note of reality in the middle of the world's dissonant symphony, and that pure note slowly, inevitably, brings other instruments back into tune. This shifts the entire goal of the spiritual journey from attainment to abiding. We're not trying to get somewhere else or become someone special. We are learning to abide, to take up permanent residence, in the truth of our being as one with the infinite. The ark isn't something we enter at a future date. We are building it by being it, right now. Every moment we choose recognition over reaction, we are adding another plank. Every time we retreat to our inner room amidst the storm, we are strengthening the hull. And when we join with others in this same conscious work, we are expanding the vessel, making room for more of humanity to find its way to safety. We are not proselytizing a religion, we are emanating a frequency. We are not saving souls in the old-fashioned, fear-based way. We are preserving the consciousness of truth itself within the human experience, ensuring that the light of spiritual awareness is not extinguished by the rising waters of ignorance. This is a sacred, urgent, and profoundly practical endeavor. It asks us to put down the tools of argument and criticism, of judgment and division, the very tools used to build cathedrals that separate, and to pick up the tools of silence, of knowing, of unconditional love, and of unified intent. Our blueprint is the Christ pattern, our building site is our own consciousness, and our crew is every other soul who has heard the same quiet instruction and picked up their tools to build alongside us, not for a place to worship, but for a living sanctuary that moves with the tides, impervious to the storm, carrying within it the seeds of a wholly new world. And this brings us to the final, crucial point, the one that takes this from a fascinating historical teaching into the living, breathing reality of your life and mine, right here, right now. This isn't a preserved relic of spiritual history. The blueprint isn't locked in a book. The principles aren't expired. The call wasn't just for a select few in Goldsmith's time. This is the active blueprint. The next Group 7 starts with you. The vision dies as mere theory if it isn't activated in the present tense. Joel laid out the schematic, he demonstrated the law, but he didn't form the last group that would ever be. He handed off the baton. The quiet revolution is always recruiting. The question isn't whether the blueprint works, the question is who's willing to pick it up and start building according to its specs today. This means a fundamental shift in identity from student to practitioner, from admirer to operative. It's moving from saying, Joel Goldsmith taught that, to declaring in the privacy of your own soul, I am ready to live as if this is true, and I am willing to find my crew. The Group 7 is not a fan club for a dead mystic. It is a functional spiritual unit, and its next iteration is waiting for the components, the individuals, to come online and recognize each other, not by a secret handshake, but by the quality of their light and the seriousness of their commitment to the inner work. It starts with you getting dead honest about your own practice. Is your inner room a place you visit occasionally when things get rough? Or is it your command central, the true seat of your government from which you operate 24/7? Are you still begging for solutions from a distant God? Or are you training yourself in the art of instantaneous recognition? Your personal consistency is the foundation stone. You cannot contribute to a stable ark if your own consciousness is still tossed by every wave. Finding your group isn't necessarily about gathering 7 people in your living room next Tuesday. It begins with the silent, unwavering intention to be part of this awakened network. As you hold that intention and deepen your own practice, the principle, the infinite invisible itself, orchestrates the connections. It will draw you to others, perhaps in unexpected ways. A comment, a shared glance of understanding, a recognition of the same depth in another. It may happen online, across miles, in the seeming coincidence of meeting someone who speaks the same interior language. The form is secondary to the function. The function is a shared, conscious commitment to be that collective battery, to schedule that silent unison, to aim your combined recognition at the pain points of the world, not as warriors, but as healers holding the space for truth to reveal itself. This is the grand transition from the theoretical to the actual. The global awakening isn't a vague event slated for some future calendar date. It is the cumulative effect of every individual who stops waiting for a leader and realizes they are the one they've been waiting for, and then finds their 6 others. Your loneliness, that feeling of being a weirdo who sees through the world's illusion, isn't a curse. It's the signal. It's your soul's readiness to seek its tribe. The blueprint is active because consciousness is active. The law of the Group 7 is as operational today as the law of gravity. Gravity doesn't care if you believe in it, it works. So does this spiritual law. When a small group achieves that unified focus in truth, the shift happens. The only variable is human willingness. The Ark isn't waiting to be discovered, it's waiting to be built. The tools are in your hands. The quiet calls are already going out across the inner planes. The next circle is forming in the unseen, and it demands only one thing for membership: a consciousness that has moved from interest to ignition, from taking notes to taking a stand within itself, ready to link up and amplify a signal that can, quite literally, retune a world.